Hello and welcome to Nick and Nell's Hyperspace. Thank you guys for being patient with us, as this is an episode that I have wanted to do for a couple months now, but life got in the way and I have been so behind on reading my comics. If you're looking at the title of this episode, you know what we're going to talk about, but for the audio listeners, we're going to discuss the last 4 issues of the 12-issue maxi series, Battle of Jakku, The Last Stand. And Justin's got a awesome image there for our video, guys. Of the final cover. So we're going to kind of talk about it at length, and I want to finish what we started, as Kylo Ren might say, and do this proper. I wanted to do this kind of around the time the last issue released. That was back in January. Here we are in March, and life just kind of got hectic for me for a few months there, and wasn't able to really sit down and read these. So I waited to collect all 4, and then finally binged them the last couple of weeks and reread them. So I'm amped up and ready to talk about them because this is a series I'm super excited about, and now we're finally at the end. So we'll, like always, kind of talk about a little spoiler-free for a couple minutes, and then we'll just dive right in. Assuming if you've read these comics, you're probably watching this video, so hopefully we're not spoiling too much for anybody, but I want to welcome back Justin to the show. Thank you, my friend, for joining me, as always. You're my comics go-to guy now. Carmelo likes comics, but I don't think he's on the level of us, but you're going to be my go-to going forward, I think, for all comic talk.
Oh, fun. Oh, cool. Anytime you want to talk comics, I'm in.
Yeah. Well, so the series is over, and it's been over a month now since it's ended. Can you generally just tell me how'd you feel about the ending? Did it satisfy all those urges in this time frame that we've been eagerly waiting for?
I think the thing it made me want to do is read the books that take place during that same timeline so that I could pick up anything that I may have missed. I'm sure that people who have read the books, like the Aftermath series and stuff, are picking up a lot of things that I haven't, just because they have that background knowledge. So it's made me want to read that series more, because there were certain things that happened where I'm like, oh, I wonder if that is this person, or I wonder if this event affects this in the sequel trilogy and stuff like that. So it made me want to do a lot more research into these characters and events. So as convoluted as a couple of these issues were, with so much backstabbing and betrayal and swapping sides, the very end of the last issue made me want to research more. So it gave me a lot of hope for the next series coming.
Yeah, like you said, I want to revisit those books. I've read those books and listened to them on Audible, but it's been probably more than 5 years now since I've done that, so I've forgotten a lot what happened in those books. I haven't really seen a lot of chatter online, usually in the comics community, when a comic drops or something happens that they contradict something, or there's a big contradiction somewhere else in the timeline. I didn't see a whole lot of that, so I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but to my knowledge, it seemed like it fit pretty well for the general audience, or for the people that were, the target audience for this book. But I agree with you there. It was the last issue was very fun. I didn't love the whole last arc, but the ending to me was a big payoff, and I thought it was worth what we got to.
Yeah, and kind of on top of what you were saying, it makes me wonder if Alex Segura did his research enough to where he was able to find this spot in time in the timeline and create this puzzle piece of a story to fit exactly into the spot where it belongs, so that things didn't change the canon, didn't change or contradict anything from the books. I mean, I don't know, since I haven't read it, but I'm pretty sure that this fit perfectly in there to where it doesn't really change a whole lot that's been previously said.
Right. Well, the focus of this whole series has been the original trilogy cast, and then the villain that you and I have grown to love so much, Mr. Adelhard. They're the main focus, and they don't show up in those books at all. They get referenced, I believe. Han shows up in one of the books. I take that back, but I think we'll talk about it later in the spoiler section. But this story kind of explains where Han's been, because if you guys have watched and read the previous 2 arcs, he's not been around, and then he does return in this, so that kind of explains why Han's been gone and he comes back. So I think he did kind of do a little bit of homework there to know that, hey, I got to take Han off the board for a while. But the series as a whole, as like you said, I don't think it contradicts anything major. There may be a couple minor things, but honestly, I mean, it's fictional world, and I think we just have to kind of accept that in Star Wars and like other media, like there's a ton of different writers and people working on these books and comics. Like it's going to be hard to make everything line up exactly perfectly. We're human.
But they do what they can.
They do what they can, and these writers are human just like the rest of us, so they may make some mistakes, but overall, I think they've crafted some pretty good stories during this time.
Yeah, I really enjoy Alex's his writing. Has he done any other Star Wars before this?
I think
that you're aware
he
of?
has written a one-shot last year, or year before last, I can't remember. It was the 40-year anniversary Return of the Jedi one-shot. He did that about an assassination attempt on Mon Mothma, which was pretty cool. And then there was a young adult novel he did about Poe Dameron in his time before he joins the Resistance. So we get to see a lot of that. And we got characters from those stories show up in this series. So he's, for those of you who don't know, he's going to be writing the new Star Wars ongoing starting in May. So there will be, I'm sure, more connections and more things to come from his stories.
It looks like also you and I were talking about it before we started recording. He wrote a lot of those Edge of Spider-Verse stories as well that we were just discussing.
Yeah, he's done a lot for Marvel / Disney / Lucasfilm, I guess you could say. Keep him in the family.
Yeah, since we're talking about big stories with too many characters to keep track of.
Right. It's fitting.
Spider-Verse is one of those.
So he's got a track record of all these moving parts and plot lines, so it seemed like he'd be a good fit for Star Wars.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff in here that that I really, really liked that referenced sequel trilogy that there were some connections there. And then that's mostly in the last issue. So, I mean, we'll get to that near the end when we go through these. So do you want to go issue by issue, or how do you want to talk about it?
We can. Yeah, we can do that. I might, so I'm very bad about this. I might get events and times mixed up because I kind of just binged them all at once and didn't sit with them for a while. So if I go through them in a wrong order, let me know. But I do like how the first issue started out with a bang, literally, with the assassination attempt on Leia from the Acolytes of Beyond. A very pregnant Leia, I've noticed. I know they had revealed she was pregnant at the beginning of the series, and it doesn't really say how much time has passed through all these stories, but I mean, she looks like she's about to pop at any second, so you can tell she's probably close to the end of giving birth. And then, I know, like we mentioned earlier, Han Solo was off the table for a while, and he comes back with a full beard, so some time has definitely passed. And I know the Battle of Jakku takes place a year after Endor, so I don't know. They didn't really specify like how long this has been.
Yeah, I was gonna wait to bring that up because I think he returns at the end of issue 3, or maybe at the beginning
2.
of issue 4. Oh, is it 2?
I think it's the end of 2.
Okay, I was gonna start calling him Bearded Han because I'm like, I've never seen Han Solo bearded before, except possibly there is a Dark Horse series called Invasion where they're dealing with. It's the series where Han and Leia have 3 kids. They have the twins and then a younger son.
Yes. And
there's a part where, this is a spoiler for a lot of people, I guess, who haven't read any of the.
For me, so you're good.
There's a story where Chewbacca actually dies saving their youngest son, and Han kind of goes into a shell and won't talk to his son for a long time. And I think in that series, in the Invasion series, I think he is bearded because he kind of just lets himself go.
Okay.
So that may be the only time that I've seen him bearded before this.
I don't know if you're much of a gamer. I don't know if we've talked about this, but the 2017 Battlefront 2 game, during the campaign, there is a mission where you play Han Solo and he has a beard in that. And that takes place around the same time as this, because you get to go see Han. He drops off something for Maz Kanata at her castle, and he has a beard, and then they're talking about the events of the Battle of Jakku, like him going to help Chewbacca and things like that from the books. So same time frame. I'm assuming they tried to keep their homework all lined up together and keep the look and the feel exactly how it was in the game and in the books. So yeah, bearded Han's not one that I necessarily love, but pulls it off pretty good. The artwork makes it look pretty believable to me. I can't picture Harrison Ford with much of a beard, so
they really must be doing their homework then if they keep using bearded Han for that entire timeline. So they are doing their homework there.
It does. What was your feeling on all these, the assassination attempt and the Acolytes of Beyond and their role in this first couple of issues?
it just made me think of like what a crazy time for the Republic to be living in when they're trying to build up this brand new Republic in the wake of Return of the Jedi. And then, but to always be looking over their shoulder for assassination attempts, because even though they defeated the Death Star, defeated the Emperor, the Empire still exists, and they're still out there, and they're still trying to take the Republic down by killing Leia, Mon Mothma, Akbar. Like, they're still very much in danger at all times. And it just, what a crazy time for the Republic to live through. And it's almost more dangerous to live through that time than when the Empire was in full force, because the Empire is desperate,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're doing everything they can. And yeah, where were they? Chandrilla
Chandrilla,
was where they were set
on
their
Mothma's
base.
homeworld.
That one agent that tried to kill her from the Acolyte of the Beyond, I think his name was Timra.
Yes, that's how I said it.
Yeah, that species, super cool species, where it has like the horns that come from the chin.
We've seen that before.
I don't know what
the character in the Bad Batch episode. What is it? I can't remember which episode. I think it's the racing episode, actually, with Tech. Molegi is his name, the big like crime boss that kind of is betting on the races and has a history with Sid. So that's the same species, I believe. And I think there's a background character in The Force Awakens that has the same design. I'm assuming the same species, but yeah, I love that design.
Also, one of the sisters that you fight as Cal in one of the
Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, I think it's in Survivor. Is it in Survivor? Whichever one you're on, Kashyyyk.
Oh, that's the first one.
In like
the Fallen Order.
Yeah, because you're fighting up in the trees.
That's right. Yeah, it's been a while since I played those games.
Yeah, it's the same species. I'm always fascinated by that species. They're just so cool looking with like the horns or tusks coming out of their chin and stuff.
Oh, they look awesome.
Fantastic. Yeah, that was a cool moment. Yeah, and Adelhard, you just every time you see a picture of his face, he's looking crazier and crazier. Descending into madness,
becoming more unhinged. Yeah.
He's very Napoleon, or like I don't know, like Henry VIII or something. In his crazy, tyrannical, just wants to take everything down so he can build it up himself.
Yeah.
And he even wants to take down the Empire too.
Yeah, it's kind of at this point for him. It's just kind of. I kind of was thinking about this as I was reading it. Is he was such a kind of buttoned up Imperial beforehand. Structure, order, kind of like your Thrawn or Tarkin. And as this has gone on, and he finds out that he's been betrayed, and the Empire really just we're going to use him as a pawn this whole time. He kind of becomes not quite to this level, but it made me think of more of like a Joker level character, where he just wants to create chaos for the sake of creating chaos. He doesn't really have a goal at this point. He just wants to bring about the end of everything, kind of nihilistic kind of view. And I just really like that turn, because that's not what I was expecting this character to be.
I really would love to see, even if it's an animation, like how different it is what he heard when he heard Vader saying, "We have plans for you," in that little epilogue portion of the comic, where he's translating that situation in one way, seeing that it's like, oh, this is a promotion. They really want me to do great things for the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, it's Vader's like, no, we're just setting you up. You're basically a scapegoat.
Right.
We don't have massive plans for you. And it's just crazy what the human mind can do, especially if it's somebody who's already unhinged, how they can translate a situation like that to sound to their benefit.
Well, yeah, and he kind of, after hearing that, his whole motivation and whole mission, I guess, in life, his purpose is based on what he was told. Like, he made that statement, his whole mission, life purpose, and I guess when your worldview is crumbled in front of you like that, like, yeah, you're probably going to snap. And he did a really good job of displaying how just insane he's become and how power hungry he's become. And yeah, it was a really good turn, and he looks incredible. I love the scruffy beard, the unkept hair, because in the first couple of volumes he was all neat and clean, and now he's just like some kind of like barbaric type ruler or leader who's just like, And I think even I can't remember which issue. There's a couple of the troopers are like, "That's not protocol" or something like that, and they're kind of questioning things. He's like, "I don't
Oh
care. We're
yeah,
just doing. This is what we're doing now," which I thought
yeah.
was a
There's
cool turn.
one. Yeah, I think it's in issue one when they're leaving that planet that he was stranded on after their escape pod sat there for what were they like 2 days they were on that planet.
Mm-hmm.
They notice it shows the troopers look at each other like he's going nuts, by the
Yeah,
way you see them like glance to the side at each other like, are we following the right person?
right.
you know I like how they put that little, it was just one panel, but you can clearly see what the troopers are thinking by their body language there.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So, what is your thoughts on Luke in this series and like what his journey is and kind of his motivations?
It felt a lot like Luke was just there as a moral compass, especially when we get near the end with what's her name, Rin.
Yeah.
Where she is going after Adelhard, and I'm blanking on the name of the woman who's from, is it Reyna? Reyna
Reyna.
Ascure or Ascure? She just wants revenge. She just wants to kill each of them because of the death of her friends and stuff. So Luke is there constantly reminding her that revenge isn't the way, that there could be a way of redemption for these people. And so I think that's basically the only role he played in this entire thing.
Hmm.
I didn't really get much more out of Luke this time around. He wasn't really the main character or the main focus, it
Right.
seemed like.
Interesting.
He was definitely a side.
I had a different thought.
Where we,
I was gonna say I had a different thought.
okay.
I kind of took it as he wasn't the main character, but I like the role of him being the moral compass of the Star Wars universe.
Mhm.
This is something I think they've kind of done in this new era of Disney with his character. Is he's the ideal hero. You're maybe your Spider-Man, your Superman, you're the one that's hopeful and optimistic. And in this series, he is kind of
Steve Rogers.
you're Steve Rogers. Maybe he's kind of more active in the story than say in later in the timeline where he's more hands off. And this, he's kind of like I can't remember which issue it is, but he's arguing with Mothma and Akbar about we don't have the resources to go after Adelhard. Like we have this battle on Jakku right now. We got to take care of that. But Luke is the one that's like, no, but this man's dangerous. He can't be left alone. Like he can't be left unchecked. And then for him to, when he does confront Adelhard, to kind of even offer him redemption at that point, even though after everything Adelhard's done, he's still like, we can help you. I want to help you. I just like that version of Luke way more than I expected.
There was a panel, speaking of what you're talking about, where Adelhard's ship is burning all around him and crumbling. And here it is. Like he's flames all around him, his ship, his ideas, his empire, it's all crumbling. Yet at the very back, there's a picture of Luke, where is like the shining light, the shining beacon in the background there.
Yes.
And so I thought that was a cool representation of what's happening to Adelhard. And the answer to redemption is that shining green light at the end of the tunnel there.
Yes.
But does he choose to take it?
No, of course not. No. And, I'm kind of glad they kind of went that direction where he didn't try to get redeemed. Sometimes I just want villains to be villains,
Yeah.
But yeah, like Luke taking more of an active role, and they've kind of portrayed him as a lot of stories as more of the loner type. And I really don't like Luke being necessarily the loner type. It works in some instances, but in this time period, I really want him to be the guy, the hero, front and center. And I'm glad that that's where they kind of took Luke in this story.
Well, I don't think Luke has that option right now. At this point in the timeline, he doesn't have the option to be just like a loner going off to find the secrets of the Jedi and stuff like that. He has to be there to help his friends, his family, help the rebellion, set up the new Galactic Republic and all that. Because if he, being like the powerful person that he is, if he were to leave and go off and do his own thing, they'd be screwed.
Sure.
So yeah, that's not even an option for him right now. Just wait till he goes into his depression so he can go sit on
the island and hang out.
Yeah,
that's true. I guess I didn't consider that, but yeah, I don't know. I like the way Alex and Charles too. Previously, I've really enjoyed the last couple of years of the comic Luke, where they've been very hopeful and optimistic and the brightness, like the embodiment of what I think a Jedi should be. I think Luke to me is the Jedi. When I think of Jedi, I automatically think of Luke. And I've enjoyed how this comic kind of keeps the spirit of that going and keeps that alive.
Yeah, I think he also tried being the moral compass for Afra in a couple issues as well.
Mm-hmm.
When they were having their philosophical debates and stuff, he was trying to win her over as far as like joining the Republic or rebellion or whatever it was at that time in the timeline. So yeah, he's always that character.
Yeah.
At least in this current series.
Yes, he should be. He should be that character. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was writing in my notes that, I think you're talking about Han. It said that he was dropping off some supplies at Takodana.
Yes.
For what's her name, Maz Kanata. It even specified that, I think, in issue 2. And then at another point, he leaves again because it says that he was returning from helping Chewie liberate Kashyyyk.
Yes, that's the plot of, I think it's the second Aftermath novel. That's pretty much the whole plot of Han and Chewie liberating Kashyyyk from the Empire.
Is that Life Debt? The name of that one?
That's kind of the, I don't know if you want me to spoil it too much or for the audience, but, Chewie has a life debt to Han, and that's kind of Han's way of repaying that life debt is, hey, I'm going to help you. I got to help you in this situation. So played a little differently in the book, because in the book, if I recall, Han's just kind of hanging out doing some kind of random job. I don't think he's actually working with the New Republic at that point. So they may have retconned it a little bit because here in the comic, it's like he's actively a part of the military and planning.
I'm here. Sorry, I couldn't find anything like that in your home.
Is that?
Sorry, for some reason my Siri just activated and was like,
I was so confused.
I don't know I don't know if it's something you said or I said, but Siri's like, oh, looking for something. I'm like,
I was so confused. I was like, is that this program that we're using? Oh.
No, sorry. I didn't know that you could access through the computer.
That's interesting. I'll edit that part out. Sorry. That was funny. I was so confused. I was somebody listening to our conversations.
No, keep it in there for the comedy. People will be like, what are these amateurs doing?
Yeah, well, we always like to say we're a low budget podcast, so we don't have the editing hours that some other podcasts have. But
scrape it together. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. I enjoy that connection with Han, but yeah, his return felt like it was worthy. It's like an old friend coming back, especially in that he does his classic Han Solo, showing up right when they need him to, and being a part of the cause when they need him to be, and helping out a lot. So classic.
There's that. There was a panel in the comic of the Falcon showing up to the fight, and let me see if I can find it. It may have been. It's either issue 3 or 4, but every time I see a panel of the Falcon, that's right here.
Yes. Oh, that's a beautiful panel.
Every time I see that, in my head, I hear Han Solo doing his scream that he does when he shows up in A New Hope.
Yes, me too.
When he shoots Vader's tie. Yes. Yeah. I hear that every single time the Falcon shows up in a comic.
I think that too. And I hear the music, the John Williams music of the triumphant return. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear it.
I wonder if other comic readers or Star Wars fans hear that as well. It's just like a subtle thing that I'm like, I wish there was some sort of soundbite that comes out of the comic.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they can do that with digital comics someday, is just have like little sound effects for everything.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
You might be onto something there. It might be whoever listens to this podcast, they might steal your idea. So you might want to try to patent that idea soon.
Better hurry up. There was a panel that showed the stormtroopers on Jakku that were already on Jakku during the battle. It was like this propaganda being fed to them through their microphones, and it was saying, break their necks with your boots, take their heads and end their tyranny, talking about the Republic.
Mm.
And I'm just like, the irony there.
So ironic. The
irony in the Empire being so brainwashed to think that the Republic are the tyrants.
Mm-hmm.
That is just insane to me.
I got a lot of like real world parallels reading this story, and it kind of made me think back to the original trilogy. In Return of the Jedi, Palpatine is no more, and the Death Star is defeated, and the movie ends like it. That's it. Like that's the happily ever after. And of course, now with these comics and even years before that, they kind of dived in and explained like, no, that's not the actual end. That's just the movie ended, but there's still stories to tell. Where it happened to the rest of the empire. Kind of like, use a real world example. You take out Hitler, there's still Nazis around. There's still people that believe in that ideology. Even to this day, there's people that buy into that ideology. So just, taking out the head of that is not necessarily going to wipe out the power structure that's been created over the years and that lives on. So I think that panel is a great way to highlight this brainwashing, this cult-like ideology that they've been following for years.
You could also draw a parallel line with Marvel Comics in the movies where they, for like Hydra, when they say take off the head and 2 more shall take its place, just because this entire group are brainwashed into thinking that they're in the right,
Right.
Insane.
Not a single entity is going to dissipate the whole structure and the following that they've catered to.
Yeah, I think even in the there was the Young Jedi Knights books that dealt with Han and Leia's twins and their children. That I don't remember which book, but there's one where they're still fighting like the remnants of the Empire that has still been existing, and those books take place about 25 years later. So like it's still very much alive, just in the like deep dark areas of space.
Right.
So they were still playing around with those stories back before Disney had ever bought Star Wars.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty telling given our current climate and the world we live in. And then, of course, we know where the story goes with the sequel trilogy. So, like, I know a lot of people, a big complaint with the sequel trilogy was like, how could the Empire just show back up after all these years? And these comics, and I think just media we've gotten over the years have kind of shown, like, yeah, I mean, like, it's not impossible that they could show back up. They're, like we said, the ideology's still there. People still have a very strong belief in it. Kind of hard to kill a dream,
Yeah. And I think they're dropping seeds of that like they did in Mandalorian with the Shadow Council. And I think they even showed it in the last issue here.
Yes.
Where it shows General Hux, I think, which is the father of the General Hux from the sequel trilogy.
That's correct, yeah.
I believe. It shows him and a couple others trying to carry on the ideas of the Empire, which will eventually evolve into the First Order. Yeah, because they're like the survivors of the fall of the Empire. So I think we're starting to get more and more stories that will eventually lead into how the First Order came about.
Yeah, which is awesome. I love when media, especially Star Wars, is really good about this, is of going back and kind of filling in those gaps that we may have missed or that didn't quite make sense. That's what the amazing job of books and comics can do, or even animated shows, or even the Disney Plus shows. They can kind of fill in those gaps, which, in hindsight, if you just watch the movies, isn't necessarily the best thing to do. But for us diehards and us that love these books and comics, this is very rewarding, very like a treat,
Yeah. And I'm wondering if we'll get some more origin stories that have to do with the birth of Rey, since we're on Jakku here.
Right.
And now, even in, what was the name of the ship that, is it the Ravager?
Yes.
That crashes into Jakku?
That's the big one that we see in The Force Awakens. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a question I was going to ask you. Like, are we seeing the ship that, yeah, here it is. The bottom panel there.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought that was the same one from the iconic shot.
The one that we see Rey's like climbing through and scavenging from?
Yeah, I think so, which is really cool.
Yeah, that was when I was reading it, and I was like, I wonder if that's a connection that they're making to the sequel trilogy there. And like a foreshadowing of like, we'll be back to see what goes on here.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, like Luke in The Last Jedi, he said, Jakku's basically nowhere. I mean, it's interesting that a massive, war-ending battle like this kind of, took out the Empire on just this red black hole planet that we later will know become very important to the story. But fun how they're making the connections between the trilogies.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if there's more of a connection too with the Star Destroyer that they liberated or captured after Battle of Yavin. It used to be the Annihilator, and now it's called Liberty's Misrules.
I don't know. I didn't.
So
Think about
I'm
that.
wondering, like, I don't think we've seen how they capture that one, but I'm wondering if it shows it more in the books or if there's other comics that I haven't seen yet where it shows them capturing this Star Destroyer.
I was going to say, I think it might be in the books. Like I said, it's been years now since I've read Liz, but I believe it might be something that happens in the books. I'm sure there's things I would like to go back at some point and read those books and then kind of read the comics as a side homework to kind of compare notes and see what I've missed or what connections they've made. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if it was in those books.
One thing I noticed as well in the very last issue, when Han decides to come join the fight as well, there's a line that he says where he says something about Luke is always there to help us. We need to go put our neck on the line for him.
Mhm.
And I think that's an exact opposite of what he says in A New Hope. He says something about putting his neck out there for the rebellion, and he refuses to do
He
it.
does say that. I didn't even think about that.
So yeah, I think it's very similar but opposite, and it just shows how different Han has become from A New Hope
To now,
where
Yeah.
he's right there to help his friends and help the rebellion.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't even notice that. Oh, that's a fun connection. I like that.
Yeah, I think they were purposely making that line very, very similar to
To the New Hope.
the dialogue.
Yeah. Oh man, that's cool. I now want to reread that part because I didn't really notice it until you said that. I remember that, but didn't make that connection. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact line from the movie, but this sounded so familiar when I read it that I'm like, that's striking a chord there. That I'm like, it sounds like I've heard him say something like that before.
Yeah. Man, what a fun connection there. Never even thought of that. Well,
I'm looking for it right now.
while you're looking for that, I kind of wanted to talk about briefly like I mentioned earlier, the new series coming up with Alex Segura is supposed to follow the events of this maxi series that we just did. And um, do you feel Alex is a good choice to continue the story with these characters?
Yeah, I don't think he did anything wrong with this series. I don't think I don't want to say abused it, but I think he treated this series well. That connected the stories pretty well, and I'm sure the fans enjoyed. So I don't think there's any, like, he didn't retcon anything too hard, or he didn't ruin anything to where the fans were like, come on, you can't take that out of the story.
That's true.
So no, he did a great job with this story. So like, why would he not be a great choice to continue right where he left off here?
Yeah.
You know,
That's my thoughts too. I didn't know if you had any extra thoughts that I didn't. So I'm happy.
and it was very. I loved the artwork too between
Jethro Morales.
Yeah, Jethro, and then there was another one too, Leonard Kirk.
Oh, let me.
They did a great job with the artwork, so I'm like, keep them going too.
Yeah.
I thought it was beautiful artwork
Yeah.
in it.
No, it's great.
I just had the page too. Oh, here. Han says that the least we could do is put our neck on the line with him, and you know I'm right. So I'm like, oh, it's
a classic Han Solo.
Yeah, just because there's that connection to like how he
used to be.
Felt the opposite way in A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can picture him either sitting in the cockpit saying that, or it's when he's sitting down in the control room of the detention center on the Death Star. I can't remember which one.
Actually, I think it's when, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's either that or it might be right before the Battle of Yavin, when Luke is suiting up and getting ready to, and they're ready to go attack the Death Star. But I couldn't. Mm-hmm. But you might be right. It might be on the detention center, in the command room. I can't remember. Yeah. I can't remember which one. I've seen that movie 1,000 times, but now that I'm having to actually talk about it, I forget.
Yeah, it makes me want to go back and watch it.
Yeah, I love that. I love when they do that. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I am excited for the next series for Alex Segura. I think he did a great job with this. I'd love to see what he does with the continuation of the story as well.
Same. And the last 2 comic runs that we've had were set in between the movies. A New Hope and Empire, and then Empire and Return of the Jedi. And now set after Return of the Jedi and the Battle of Jakku. So and then we know Luke shows up in The Mandalorian. Leia is referenced in Ahsoka. Like, they're around But I feel like the comics here, we have a good bit of time where we can do all kinds of things, tell all kinds of stories, and play around. And my view over the last few years is I don't feel like Lucasfilm wants to put our main trilogy cast during the Mandalorian timeline because I don't think they want to alienate people with recasting or even the deepfake stuff too much. I think they kind of want to keep them as far away as possible. That's how I felt about it. And I think the comics are a perfect playground to tell the stories of these characters and what their journey is going to end up being.
Yeah, we have I think roughly a 10-year gap in between the end of this series and the beginning of Mandalorian.
Is it?
So there's a good 10 years to play around with to show the events of how they're building up the New Republic. And I feel that's probably a good area to start. I remember the whole Rangers of the New Republic project that they were working on that got canned.
Yeah.
Maybe they can start that series in comic form since we're not going to get a movie or show.
Yeah, pick up those threads somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, we can see how, what was his name, Carson Teva and Zeb joined the Rangers.
Man, if they show up in this comics, I'm gonna lose it. I would love that to see like Zeb and Carson Teva just showing up, like even if they're just like brief cameo where they're just walking and like, oh, we got to go do this thing over here, and they're gonna, all the pilots are starting to leave. That would be cool. Or seeing Luke just hanging out at the bar with the pilots would be fun. A little slice of life type Star Wars story would be cool.
Yeah, and to see all the different squadrons that they form, because I think they even mentioned in this last issue, was it Wedge was part of, or the leader of Phantom Squadron? Yeah, I think they called it. So. I'm like, give me more of those. I want some more of these X-wing pilot stories, because we have the old Rogue Squadron books. I'd love to see more of those.
Yeah, me too.
And while they're setting up the New Republic,
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah, I would love more boots on the ground. Kind of view of the New Republic and what their day-to-day is like. I think that'd be an awesome series. Maybe we'll get some of that.
But also on the opposite end of it, I would love if we saw how the Shadow Council is building up from the ashes of the Empire, starting to build the New Order.
Oh, yeah. That'd be awesome.
Or the First Order, I mean.
Yeah.
But also kind of keep it shrouded in mystery and darkness so that we can see it in one of these films or shows that we're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah, don't give away too much, but plant the seeds, I guess you could say.
Yeah, since they alluded to it in Mandalorian, I feel like they're kind of going to do that in the show where we're going to get little snippets here and there of what they're doing. But I would definitely like to see some of it in comic form.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
so Alex Segura, who's watching this podcast now.
Please, yeah, we have ideas for you if you want to contact us. We don't. You just mention us like as a in the comic. You don't have to give us full credit. You want to put ideas from Justin and Nick.
Yeah, we're here for consulting purposes anytime he needs it.
I mean, I don't really have to get paid. I would just love to just be a part of it, crafting a Star Wars story. I don't have to get paid for it necessarily. You want to pay me, I'm down.
I would accept payment as being a drawn character in the comic.
Yeah, make us pilots or something in the background, or I'll be a pilot that makes a heroic sacrifice. I don't care. Do what you got to do.
Didn't Y-wing pilots have two, like a pilot and co-pilot?
I believe so.
Was it like a bomber? The bomber was in the back?
Yep. And then
all right, that's how we'll do it. You and I will go out.
That would be awesome.
Like you be the pilot, I'll be the bomber in the back, and like we'll go out in a blaze of glory.
That's right. We'll rescue the Falcon and let them escape or something. I'm cool with that.
That would be great.
Let Han and Leia live to fight another day. So
yeah, I'd be down for it.
I would be too. Well, Justin, I appreciate you for joining me. Thank you again. For all our viewers, I want to let you know we got some more stuff in the works here at Nick and Mills Hyperspace. I definitely want to do more comic-focused stories. Me and Justin have thrown around a couple ideas. We got a lot of stuff coming with the 20-year anniversary of Revenge of the Sith, and then 10 years of Force Awakens, which sounds weird to say out loud. And I'm definitely going to post a link. As I mentioned earlier, the trade paperback, all 12 issues will be collected and be released on June 3rd. So check your local comic shops, pre-order them, support them during these times. I'll post a link if anybody doesn't have one in their area or can't get to one. Maybe you can order it online somewhere from a good business and support them that way. So thank you again, Justin. Hope to have you back on again in the future.
Anytime you need. It's a lot of fun.
It is. And if you've listened this far, Thank you so much. You're the best. May the force be with you guys, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.